Johnny and Justin were two simple Imagineers at Disneyland until they dared to ask the question,
"Hey Justin, is Disney diverse?"
Well, Johnny, I'm not.
Oh no, we've angered the mouse!
Stormtroopers, run!
Holy crap, it's a gathering of cookies!
Now, from undisclosed locations within the Disney park, Johnny and Justin record a podcast where they seek to answer the question, is the Disney catalog diverse?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Disney+Diversity. I'm Johnny.
And I'm Justin.
And you know that Disney+Diversity is where we review the Disney catalog to talk about actually how diverse and inclusive is it. Justin, we're not at Disneyland. Why
Definitely
is that?
not. I think everyone knows why we're not at Disneyland right now. So we're not hiding anywhere over there. We are at our own places, our own secluded places that only me and I don't even know where Johnny's at. That's the fact. Johnny doesn't know where I'm at. And so that's the plan. So for the next, hey, just, hopefully whenever you guys are getting around to watching this, you're still safe and you're all good. And we're just here to just talk about the crap that you love or you don't love. That's what we're here for. So yeah, I don't know where Johnny's at. Johnny doesn't know where I'm at. Nope. This is how extremely secluded we are right now. But hey, I can still talk to him, and we're still talking to you folks.
Exactly. I rented out a very nice Airbnb. Location does not need to be specified, but I'm comfortable. I have my hand wipes and my hand sanitizer, and I always have my sneakers around. So I'm totally comfortable and safe right now. So yay. So today, we're talking about a little show that, in my opinion, I don't know about Justin, but I kind of feel low-key helped launch the Disney Plus channel. Sorry, the Disney Plus app, because when it launched, it was the main thing that everybody was talking about for weeks and weeks. It trended on Twitter. And so today, we talking about Gargoyles, y'all. Woo!
Yeah, we are.
So Justin, how'd you feel when you first let's take it back. How did you first feel when you first saw Gargoyles when you were younger? Like, when did you first get introduced to it?
Oh man, I remember counting the days when the show was coming out. I remember seeing the commercials for it, and it just looked amazing. It just looked like a really cool show, and I'm like, oh my god, when's this coming out? And I remember just being like anticipating when the show is going to drop, and when it did, I think it was glued to the television every time it aired, and I just it was a thing because it was like a show that even as a kid I knew something special was about it, you know, and it was a show that I was like, as a kid I was like, oh, this isn't like what I've been seeing around, there's elements of other shows, like it definitely, the biggest thing that I took away from realizing is like, oh, there's a huge Batman the Animated Series vibe that this show shares 100%. But I knew it was its kind of special own thing where it's like, there's a difference between watching Gargoyles and say Biker Mice from Mars, there's a difference between watching Gargoyles and watching Street Sharks. It was something like, it's clear Gargoyles was a quality show even at my age when I first saw it. Johnny, how about you?
Yeah, low-key the same. So, excuse me. So for me, it was just a little bit different. Very similar to yourself, though, because, I didn't know it was coming out. I kind of stumbled upon it by accident. I came home, I'm watching Disney Afternoon one day. I clicked in and I've seen, the heck is this? And I don't even think I started with the first episode. I think it came on, episode 2. So I'm, really just, catching up or whatever. I'm like, yo, this is different. Like, one, the animation quality. Kind of like what you're saying. The animation quality was like that Batman animated series. Not in styles, but just in budget. This was different. It was more adult. It wasn't as cartoony. It was also dark. And then also just like the fight scenes, the mythos. Like, I remember just like falling in love with the show because it was just like so grand and so good. Like, for me, the thing that really differentiated was like all the Shakespearean lore that exists all throughout the show. The thing about it is that like there's an actual character named like Macbeth. There's an actual like Avalon and everything like that. Puck is a major player here and everything like that. So it's like drawn from all this like Shakespearean mythos, but bring it here to the screen in such a way that's like so tangible and dope. And what also made it different too is like, to your point, we brought like Biker Mice from Mars, like Street Sharks and things like that. All of those are trying to capture the popularity of TMNT, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But Gargoyle's like, no, we can walk our own path. And it really did, and it did it really well. Like, it was so good.
Here's the funny thing, though. It did walk its own path. That's the reason why it still, like, sticks out. But the hilarious part is that, like, it still is in the mild parameters of a TMNT thing, right? The characters are non-human. They don't, like, transform into the gargoyles. And they have a human, surrogate human partner, who's usually a female. But Eliza is not April O'Neil.
No, she's not. She's not Lois Lane. She's none of that.
No. Even Biker Mice from Mars, again, like, they had, like, a female mechanic who looked kind of like April O'Neil. So the show carved its own path by still maintaining the road. Other popular things are being, played with,
Yeah.
And that's kind of amazing about the show,
No, it's dope because it borrows some of those like little nuances to help build something that's amazing. But at the same time, like we said, it created its own like pathway in a way, which is like you said, is the reason why it like exists to this day. Like, we're kind of doing things a little bit out of order, but like part of the thing that's going on today is like, for a long time there were like Gargoyles conventions where like people were getting together here in California to celebrate. Oh God, I just said I'm in California. Okay, all right, nothing else. All right, so location has to remain edited. So the thing about this is that they used to do like yearly conventions and the writers would show up and some of the cast and everything like that. And so honestly, like, it just showed that this had like a long longevity when it gets its own convention onto itself and everything.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing too, like what you said, like, it's cool that the show found ways to add a lot of mythology while building its own mythology. The fact of the matter is that, like, I was, first show came out in 94, so I was fourth grade, and so but the show was my introduction to some Shakespearean characters that I didn't know about. So like, I remember going to high school and or starting to learn, going to high school, junior high, and then going to English classes and hearing about Midsummer's Night Dream or like Macbeth, and all of a sudden I'm reading those stories and I'm like, wait a minute, I remember the Three Witches from Gargoyles. Wait a minute, like, I met Puck in Gargoyles, and so one thing I'll say, without jumping too far ahead too much, and that with no big spoiler, but I was a kid who read a lot about King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, and so when they went to Avalon, I was like, oh, we were at Avalon, in Avalon, and then when Eliza was going along to like, hey, I know who's going to help us, essentially, and she goes to a king in a like a tomb type area, and I went, no.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
King Arthur, your kingdom needs you. Oh. But we're not going to talk too much about the big later seasons, etc. We're one of the big things we're changing up for how we're talking about TV shows on this show is me and Johnny talked about it and came up with the idea that we'll only be honestly just discussing the first 5 episodes. Johnny, explain why the first 5 episodes.
So the reason why we said the first 5 is because like the first 2 to 3 episodes of a series are where they're trying to find their stride, but they're also establishing like the universe, all the main characters and whatnot. And by episode 4 and 5, you have a clearer sense of like, okay, this is where the show's going to kind of go. And within those first 12 episodes, it gives you the opportunity to meet a lot of the things that we will be looking for in a show. Include diverse characters, include inclusive storylines, pass the Bechdel test, pass the Wire test, where 2 people of color are having conversations. It gives you plenty of time to do like all those things. And so it kind of helps us out. Plus, at the same time, y'all, we just ain't the time. It is so hard to watch an entire series and then I bust that down to a 45-hour-long like podcast and like video podcast thing. In addition to that, though, honestly, we wouldn't do it justice. So it's kind of better for us to like jump in for 5 episodes. Plus, if we really like a series, we'll go back and like watch the whole thing, and then we'll come back and maybe talk about like the first 5 like season 2, or maybe do like a whole like series recap at some point. But if we don't like a series, saving us some time. Saving us some time.
And here's the funny thing about talking about the first 5 episodes of the Gargoyles. It's a little different from like other shows that we'll probably be talking about later on. Gargoyles' first 5 episodes is essentially the pilot movie. You know, it's a movie. It's a pilot movie. It's essentially, this is the whole story. This is the reasoning why everyone's here. This is paced in a way that it's like, okay, essentially this is what everyone's going to be like. This is what everyone's going to act like when they're here in the modern day, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's a great job because it does a really good job of like slowly building up the characters and the situation they're going to be in, and gives it time to breathe without feeling like, oh, I got to cram a lot of things in episodes 1 and 2 in 22 minutes. Like, no. 5 episodes was the right pacing to let everything kind of explain itself, you know?
No, for sure. Exactly. They took their time, built it out naturally and everything like that, and it paid off. It paid off in the long run because you couldn't squeeze all this down to say like a 2-parter, but like, yeah, giving it 5 episodes to breathe is just like the right formula. And it's funny because we've seen that done a couple times because DuckTales did the exact same thing, the original series.
Yep.
Their first thing was like a 5-part, like epic, almost movie in a way, but it does such a great job of like setting everything up, building the universe, and it makes you want to see more afterwards.
Yeah.
All right. So want to jump right into it? Talk about first episode 1.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So I got some notes here. To be honest with you, episodes 1 through 2, I'm just kind of like we in the past. But a couple things that stuck out to me is like, number 1, that theme song is fire. Oh, man, it's fire. Like honestly, like there's no words, but it's just like dun 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 dun. It's like, it's just like, it just hits you. And again, like back to you said, it gives you those Batman animated series vibes, and it's such a great thing because it gives you the tone of the show. It's not like lighthearted. It's like a little bit dark but serious, unless you know how the show's going to be. And then I love all the clips they use to like creative because as you're watching it, the opening sequence and everything like that, it's just like, oh, who's that character? Who's that character? Mm-hmm. And it has such a like dark vibe to it, but you're like, oh, there's gonna be some fighting in here. Okay, this is on point. I'm down for this. Let's go.
Here's the other thing that really impressed me in the first opening sequence. The first opening sequence that happens in New York, where all the rubble is like falling around everybody. The thing that really impressed me is like, I haven't seen this show proper in a while. Even when Disney+ launched, I figured like, I'll wait till I give it some real time to view it. And I actually haven't redone the rewatch till yesterday before we did our recording. And so I'm watching the first opening sequence, and I'm just sitting there going like, damn, this still looks good.
Yeah.
This is well animated. Like I've seen some garbage from that same time period that are not as well animated or as aged as well. But this opening sequence is freaking well animated as hell. And it definitely holds up. It definitely holds up in the rewatch. It's in terms of just how it looks. The music is 100% Batman animated series inspired, very Shirley Walker-ish, who composed the Batman animated series. But it does feel like its own thing. And yeah, the opening credits is like the opening credits is so good that they
just you have a bodyguard.
Yeah, man.
Good job,
dude.
Well done.
I ain't fucking around.
You see? Why didn't I get a bodyguard? I'm over here just like, man, lucky. I'm sorry. You were saying. No,
just for emergencies. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no. What was I saying? I forgot.
Sorry, you're talking about the opening theme song, how it's like Batman animated series, and you're talking about the animation quality, how it still looks good, like by today's standards and everything.
Oh, yeah. Now, one of the other cool things about the show, I feel, is we're talking about building its own mythology, but also, utilizing other mythologies and other high concepts. But let's talk about building its own mythology. The fact that the show, because here's the thing, right? Like, they could have just adapted another comic book. They could have adapted another thing and do its own thing. They could have done all that. Instead, they took what was obviously kind of what was popular around the time and then went, okay, cool, now let's build our own rules. And even if the rules don't last very long in some cases, I'll bring up the one in the big case, and the fact that they build up, this is the world building. This is what they're doing in creating characters. So here's the big one that they do eventually kind of change because of the situation they're in. Gargoyles do not have names.
Yeah.
Goliath only has a name because he's the leader and he has respect by the humans.
And he's such a big freaking monster type deal.
Yeah. So none of the other gargoyles refer to each other by names. They don't have names. And it's this great little bit of business where there's this kid in the first episode who goes like, what do you guys call each other? And we're like,
friend.
And it's okay, but how do you tell each other apart? We look different.
He's red, has horns.
Yeah.
He's short, green, has some web things right here. Like, a duh.
Yeah, which is kind of like a neat commentary in its own regard, where it's kind of like at the end of the day, it's like you and me are two very clearly different looking dudes, and I could just go like, he's my friend, you're my friend. We don't necessarily, I don't think anyone's gonna really confuse us, but we have to have names, But it's an interesting idea that the Gargoyles is like, we don't need names, and it's a neat idea until the situation has to change, obviously, where they get sent to the present day. And I kind of like the idea that the name concept is more of let's get acclimated to our new life. This is who we are. And it's kind of a neat way of doing the name thing too, because it's like in Ninja Turtles, like they named themselves after the famous, Renaissance artists. Mm-hmm. And so here the idea is like, well, if they woke up in New York and they're checking out New York, it is kind of neat that almost all their names are New York based, Yeah. So it's like, okay, cool. I'm going to call myself Lexington. I'm going to call myself Brooklyn. I'm going to call myself Bronx. Or we're going to call... we'll get to Bronx. But,
we'll get to that.
Oh, my favorite scene in this whole 5 episodes is like, it's Hudson talking to Eliza.
Yeah.
And he's like...
Does the river have a name? Yeah. We call it the Hudson. Fine. Call me the Hudson.
I do love also...
He got lucky though, low key though, because like, what if it had like a really bad name? Does the river have a name? We call it a piece of shit. Fine, that's my name. Piece of shit.
Dodge the bullet.
I
even love the idea that the show addresses the Goliath name because it sounds cool, right? But I love the idea that in episode 1, the princess, the royal highness was kind of like, Goliath was the evil bully in the David and Goliath story, right? And I think that's kind of cool because it informs the character, not informs the character Goliath, it informs the man who named him.
How he saw him and everything like that.
Yeah, how he saw him, and especially what that character eventually did. It's an interesting way of creating character development, even for a character that, technically speaking, won't be important for the rest of the show, but it does add to it, It's some good writing in this show.
For sure. And I mean, let's kind of jump into it. So, in that first episode, we opened up with there like being a huge battle going on, and like the gargoyles are like, it looks like the people are losing in the castle, but all of a sudden it turns night, and then all of a sudden, and the gargoyles wake up and they go to work. Like they kick out fools left and right, throw them in the hay ditches and all types of stuff. And they save the castle. And so this is where we find out that like they have a pact in a way. They protect the castle like at night from like enemies or whatnot. And they're this overwhelming force that can pretty much fend off any army. But the deal is that the humans protect them during the daytime. Because that's when they're most vulnerable, because that's when they're asleep and turn to stone. But it's weird though, because at the same time, after we see them like go through, fend off this whole army and everything like that, we see the contrast of the way they're treated. Mm-hmm. And they're treated like monsters, like outsiders. It's like, dude, they literally just saved your life. That is their whole purpose for being here, is to protect you and do these things for you, but you treat them like monsters, everything like that. And to be honest with you, I found it interesting because in a way, this podcast, like Disney+Diversity, so we can talk about some deep things, but I was like, in a way, it's almost an allegory for like slavery in the United States. So So the thing about this was because, again, like slavery, for people who don't know, is like one of the main building blocks of this country. That was like the economic like backbone for this country getting established. And without that, it's like, again, we would not probably have the country we have today, because again, of so much like how many like cotton they picked, how much like money they generated, all these different things, and so on and so forth. But the thing about this was that even though like again like African American community was so essential to the success and the building block of this country, they're treated with discrimination all throughout history, all the way to today. And you see with other communities as well. Like you see it with the Asian American community, and like a lot of things that they've done all throughout the years, like helping build like so many foundations, like the railroads and like so many different things like that. They do all these historical things to help build this country. But again, they're always met with like this racism discrimination. And so honestly, like that's like going back to the writing. That's why I was like, this is really deep. It's touching on some things and some nuances of stuff that happens in real life, which is really cool to see.
Oh yeah, no, it's shocking what they can accomplish in a show that is also filled with like, you know, like cool action sequences, funny bits of humor, and comic booky style like ideas. But at the same time, it's like the show kind of knew that it had to be a little bit more than that, which is kind of funny to think about, because I was reminded that the show initially, when pitched, was kind of supposed to be a comedy.
Really?
Yeah. It was pitched as kind of more like a comedic show, until eventually they changed their mind to try to aim it towards more of an action adventure show.
Because that's why I low-key heard, because I heard that part of the reason why is because Batman the Animated Series was performing so well that Disney wants something to contrast that, because at the time all they had was like, you know, Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers,
right,
Tailspin, DuckTales, Bonkers. We'll get to that at some point. Hopefully not, but we probably will. But
no ifs, ands, or buts, dude.
Yeah,
totally nuts.
Bonkers. but the thing about it is, though, is that like you said, this was like more mature, more serious storyline, which is dope. So that first episode, they go through, they save the castle. We meet 3 young gargoyles who kind of get into like a little altercation with some of the humans, and so they say, you know what? Take your ass to the rookery. You go to the rookery. Since you want to be starting stuff or whatever, get your ass to the rookery. And so they go down to the rookery. Now, what was supposed to happen also was that, like, so apparently they found out that the humans who attacked them during the daytime, there's some type of plan going on where they're going to come back. So, like, Goliath was like, all right, cool. Tell you what, I got this. I'm going to take Old Man Hudson. We about to go over there. Boom, boom. Handle some business. Let's go. Damona's like, yo, babe. Oh, sorry, we didn't mention Damona, which is Goliath's girlfriend.
Right.
Blue gargoyle, red hair. Whoo, she be fine. And so he calls her my angel of the night. That's game right there. That's game. And so she's like, take me with you, my love. And he's like, nah. I need you to hold it down here. Because like the knuckleheads, they begin stupid when I'm gone. So I need you to hold it down here. I'm going to take Old Man Hudson. We're going to go put in this work. They go off the fly and they realize it was a trap. It was a trick. They did that to just get them away from the castle. And then what ends up happening again in the daytime, that army goes back. And again, when the humans are weak, again, they destroy the gargoyles. And it's also because we find out that the gargoyles have been betrayed. Yeah. It was the general who's in charge of the castle we thought was cool and everything like that, who was actually working with his army. And so all of a sudden, boom, all the gargoyles are destroyed. And that's the end of, that's like end of episode 1, going to episode 2. So when you saw this, what were you thinking at this point?
Oh man, it's kind of, again, like just the fact of the fact that the show, again, the kind of like shocking maturity the show had, the idea that like we're going to show essentially a massacre,
a genocide.
Oh no, it's a genocide. Absolutely, it's a genocide. And the idea that the only way that it got away with it is because they were statues, you know.
Yeah.
But it's not any less implied that it was a genocide, you know. And the fact that it happened in episode 1 too, to create that kind of darkness, to create that kind of, again, that almost Batman-y answer to what happened to them. You know, it's also one of those cases they knew that, like, yeah, that stuff has to kind of be there to create tragedy in a comic booky, superhero-y kind of storyline, you know, because that's sort of a thing that we all, like, you know, when we get into when we love the superhero genre. You and me are big fans of that genre. And the thing with the superhero genre is that a lot of it has to stem from the idea that it comes up with responsibility due to what happened to them, due to a circumstance, you know, mostly, if not almost always, you know. And in this case, like, that is the thing that gives the gargoyles their motivation, you know, to do what they're going to do, you know. And even though it's working out, and this, or at least motivation of how they're going to handle situations from this point on, you know. Yeah. This is why these first 2 episodes are so important, and why we never really got to New York until the middle of the second ep. You know, it's got to be built up. It's got to explain. You got to live into these worlds. After the situation with, you know, they took care of after they're kind of like whoever's left alive, which is going to be our core cast, the Gargoyles, comes in to help out the magician, the princess is a magician, in fear of something's already happened, and he blames them. Again, it's a whole like
misunderstanding thing because like Goliath comes back. Goliath discovers that those three knuckleheads are still alive, along with Bronx. The dog? I don't know.
We'll get back to that.
We'll get that. Okay, and so the thing about it is, so they go through and they go and they discover the betrayer. They defeat him, defeat the army, do all this stuff, whatever. And the princess that got kidnapped, and they go and save the princess too. The magician thinks like, oh no, you fools have got the princess killed. That's it. I'm gonna punish y'all. And he does his spell where he turns them into like stone. But the thing about it is, he turns them to stone permanently, even at night. So when Goliath shows back up with the princess and everybody's saved, he sees like his homies, like all the other gargoyles, have been turned to stone. He's like, stone? At night?
Yeah.
And he's just like, why would you do this? And he's like, I didn't know. And the magician feels guilty or whatever. And Goliath's like, turn me to stone too. He's like, what? He's like, I'm the last of my people. I can't exist here in this world by myself. I'll be with them. If there's something that breaks his spell, then we all come out together. It's like, it was like some ride or die, like some true stuff. But it was also so like the torment he was in, because again, we talked before that genocide, like all his people were killed. When he comes back in the daytime, he's picking up the pieces of rubble that were his brothers and sisters. He's tormented. He's torn up from the inside. So it's just like, it's almost like, in a way, almost like suicidal to a certain degree, because there's really no guarantee. Because the whole point of the spell is that the only way it will be broken is when that castle rises above the clouds, which is like, that ain't happening. like I don't think fall counts, so I don't think this is happening.
No.
And so that ends the whole thing right there with them being in the past, and then we kind of fast forward to the future. Now, what I will say what was cool though is back during episode 1, we actually started in New York. And we saw like chunks of rubble falling and whatnot. And it was a great teaser. It was also really smart for the audience. Because I think as kids, if we thought this whole series was going to take place in the past, we were like, do I really want to watch this? But it starts off in New York and then jumps back to the past in order to kind of be like, no, we're going to come back to like New York, the present time. We're just getting everything set up. And so then we come to the present. And then what happens when we get to the present, Justin?
We meet Xanathos. Xanathos is in that line of classic billionaire, trillionaire antagonists that is very popular at the time period. Definitely in the 80s for obvious reasons, and and definitely bled into the 90s. And it's interesting the fact that like Xanathos is absolutely in the vein of a Lex Luthor type, you know. But Xanathos is also, the fun part about Xanathos is that he was played by Jonathan Frakes from Star Trek, who was of course Riker. And the hilarious part is that he mildly looks like Jonathan Frakes, you know,
just a little bit with a goatee and
No, and I was actually, as I was watching the show yesterday, my buddy Victor even reminded me to fight that. Little Jonathan Frakes, little Riker, a touch Tony Stark.
Just
a touch of a Tony Stark. Along with the ponytail, you know. Ponytails, of course, that's the key 90s thing. That's the key 90s look, is the ponytail. But yes, him and his assistant's name, I blanked out right now. What was his assistant's name?
What was his assistant's name? What was his name? Just the blonde guy with the glasses. Low-key, we could give a major spoiler right now because I'm not sure if you remember, but we won't do that.
Crap. Anyway, we'll move on from that. Yeah.
I'll look up. Keep going.
Yeah. But we do meet them, and the whole wild thing is that, like you said, like the curse is like the moment the castle that the Gargoyles are held up in gets raised to be above the clouds. A very bizarre, like very kind of specific spell that, like, I'm sure the magician was like, that ain't gonna happen.
Owen.
Thank you. Little did the magician realize that, of course, billionaires in a millennium later will have the ability to, trillionaires have the ability to, like, lift an entire castle from an entire country and put it on top of a building in the middle of New York.
So I gotta be real. As I was watching this, I was like, why? Why would you do?
Did you?
Miles Morales before Miles Morales because she's black, she's Latina with a little bit of Native American, and she is badass. Like, it's so dope. Like, I remember you were saying before, like, when we talk about the April O'Neil comparison, but Justin, you were saying she's different from April O'Neil, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. It's not even the fact that like despite the fact that like she's a human in a high pressure kind of like job, and she has long hair. That's another regular staple. No, I don't feel that she's very much like April O'Neil. I think she's very much her own character,
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it comes from the fact that, it's you make a character like that, the cop, it's already automatically more interesting than some other characters who would be, because the characters, it's kind of like that thing where it's like, you see a female cop character in a show like this, like, think about this or NYPD Blue or whatever, and there's just something kind of like insanely empowering because they're a female cop,
No, I agree, because if you had made her, because the thing about it is you want to make her something where she has to investigate and be interested in these gargoyles. So immediately you can go to a reporter, but as we saw with like Lois Lane and April O'Neil, it almost goes to like, you're a reporter, you're a damsel in distress. But by making you a cop, it's like, no, I'm investigating because I'm trying to solve a problem. I'm trying to protect people, and I can also stand on my own 2 feet. Which is like, we can kind of go into episode 4, because episode 3, they meet Eliza, they meet Xanathos. The gargoyles are just a little bit hesitant, but they kind of like trust Xanathos, willing to go along with this. Alicia sneaks in. She ends up like discovering the gargoyles, falls off the roof. She does get damseled for a quick sec when Goliath saves her, but they come back and she's like, "Well, tell you what, let me show you the city." So she takes Goliath out to see the city. The boys, they decide to go explore the city too. And Hudson, after getting his name, goes to go watch TV. Decides to go watch TV. It was like Hudson do what Hudson do. Which goes to the episode.
Go ahead. Well, no, I like the idea that Hudson eventually he discovered how to be a grandpa really fast.
Yes.
He discovered he's naturally inclined to be a grandfather. So he's like, ooh, a reclining chair. Oh, and he knew how to press a television remote control. It's like it was instinctual. It's like, huh. Here's the thing. We haven't talked about the other three gargoyles that are in our crew, or the 4 gargoyles in our crew. And here's the funny thing, right? It's like you still have to do stock tropes. You have to do your standard, your standard one. So you have your bad boy, you have your nerd, you have the fat one, which is gonna be a common theme when we talk about kid shows from the 90s. Yeah. But yeah, so your bad boy is Brooklyn. Big beaked. He's not super bad boy. Beak. He's got the hair. He's got the beak. He's not like extreme bad boy, but he's the one to me that's closest to Raphael. But he's the cool guy. If anything, take that back. He's not the bad boy. Yeah. Brooklyn's the cool dude. He's the Fonz of Gargoyles. You have Lexington. He's the nerdy one, and like he is a no now, but he is gonna be good with machines.
Yes, well done, sir. Well done.
And then there's Broadway. Listen, I love Broadway, and Broadway does some really rad shit in season 2. Broadway eats a lot.
He does, but the cool thing about it is, though, I'm gonna give some slight spoilers because I agree with you, because the thing about this is that they all like. Because like Brooklyn's, like you said, the cool one. Lexington's the smart one, and then Broadway's kind of like the goofy one, but also like the heart. Because and the thing about it is though, is that like they don't stick to these tropes like too much though, because they're all warriors. And while Lexington does become like the computer whiz, machines, like all this kind of stuff and everything like that, like Brooklyn doesn't become like the a-hole cool guy. He's just somebody who like kind of like guides it to himself and like kind of grows himself more over time. And Broadway, even though he's a fat guy, he's not like the comical relief or anything like that. He's still cool and a badass. Like I love it how he becomes a detective at one point. Oh, yeah. And like he's like investigating to help police out with crimes, things like that. Later on in the series, at one point he gets a girlfriend. When all the other guys want girlfriends, he actually does get a girlfriend. Broadway, boy. No spoilers. You got to watch to find out who it is. And so that's kind of like the cool thing about it is that, like, I agree with you. They're kind of tropey, but at the same time, they still feel so unique, though. Whereas, like, I don't feel like I can, like, typecast you too much. And so those 3 brothers, they go out to the city. They go and, like, explore. They're, like, ride a motorcycle, try out food, see a bunch of cool stuff. And they're being amazed. Then, like, the 3 brothers, they go to the city. They go and, like, explore. They're, like, ride a motorcycle, try out food, see a bunch of cool stuff. And they're being amazed. Then, like, the 3 brothers, they go to the city. They go and, like, explore. They're, like, ride a motorcycle, try out food, see a bunch of cool stuff. And they're being amazed. Goliath and Elisa are taking like a walk through like Central Park, and Goliath is like amazed at all the stuff he's seeing, but then they get attacked. So they get attacked and being like shot at and all this kind of stuff like that. Goliath finishes most of them off, but he gets hit with a tranquilizer dart. And so he's about to pass out. It's a heavy one too. And apparently discovered there was a tracking device put on Goliath this whole time. It's like, okay, where did that come from? The worst thing about it is, though, the sun's about to come up. So Goliath starts turning to stone, and Elisa's like, what does this mean? And she turns to stone. She's like, crap, what do I do? Because those people are still after him, which literally goes to my favorite episode, episode 4.
Yeah.
Now, for me, the reason why I love episode 4 is because it starts off about the first 10 to 15 minutes with Elisa having to protect, like, some of what happened in the last episode, but it still also with Elisa having to protect Goliath, which is something you don't normally see. That's the reason why her character is so dope, because, like, usually the damsel's getting saved, but here, no, we're taking a solid 10 to 15 minutes to show you that Lisa's a badass, and she's unlike any other character you've ever seen. Like, she fights off she takes on, like, all this whole group of soldiers who are coming after him. She outsmarts them, like, by planting bombs, like, all this kind of stuff. She fights hand-to-hand with, like, the last guy, takes him out and everything like that. And honestly, this is where the series like passes the wire test for me, because the one guy soldiers take it out. The group of soldiers are a mix of people of color and men and women, which is like that's a pretty diverse group. And then Elisa takes Homie out. Homie had a tan. Could have been minority.
No, that's a good point.
Pass the wire test.
No, it's a great point. No, the idea that this whole episode was built on the idea of showing that Elisa can handle her own. Even without the protection of Goliath, the rest of the Gargoyles, and more importantly, the dedication she already has to helping Goliath. Like the fact is, like, you know, she basically stays by his side the whole day, the whole day till the sun comes down. Yeah, which meant that she probably didn't really she probably didn't use the restroom. She probably didn't eat. She probably, you know, like if she did it really fucking quick. But no, like, she stayed by his side the entire time. And when he woke up, he was like, you know, we find out that, like, you know, the regenerative process of them turning into stone in the morning is legitimately, like, enhanced. So it's like they're healed. Basically, they're healed immediately.
It's like Wolverine's healing factor.
Yeah, it's like they go into because it's such an extreme hibernation mode that they'll be fine. If, like, anything real hardcore injury, it's become clear that any hardcore injuries that happens to them is that if they go into hibernation stone mode in the morning, they'll be totally fine by the time they wake up. But that means they have to make sure they survive up to that point. So those are going to be things that kind of end up happening in the show. And that's the other cool thing about the show, is that because of these rules, it gives, like, the Gargoyles are super cool and they're amazing and they're action packed and they're badass and they're durable. They have limitations. And if anyone, like, decides to take advantage of those limitations because they know about those limitations, they're just as vulnerable as you and me, if not more so, because of those limitations, which is a really great way to add drama to the show than just simply, you know, like a kryptonite type thing, you know. And so, and also it's cool that after, when Goliath wakes up and he sees that Eliza did that and she's still there, he was like, you're still here. You stayed by my side the whole time. So again, creating an instant trust, you know, an instant trust with her. And that's, again, establishing a relationship.
Yep, and to add on to that, the big thing that happened there too was when they shook hands.
Yeah,
because that shaking of hands, it wasn't about establishing like a romantic love interest. It was like, no, this is a friendship, but it's also like we see each other as equals. It's like I protected you during the night and you protected me during the day. It's the exact same relationship he used to have back in the past, but now he's found somebody he can actually believe in the present who's going to actually get his back, and that's important. He's established like this kinship that he needs to like to make it to this new world, right? And so, which is awesome. So then after that, they go back to the castle. When they get back, the bros are all talking about all the stuff they've seen or whatever. They also find out that Hudson has a name. They're like, well, if Hudson has a name, we should all get names. And then Lexington's like, I want to be called Lexington. And then Broadway's like, I want to be called Broadway. And then Brooklyn's like, yo, Biggie died there. And I'm going to be like, Biggie, Brooklyn, let's go. Call me Brooklyn, son. Let's go. So hip hop was born. Whoa. I was like... That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
Is this before Biggie? This is before Biggie passed away, right?
No, this is after Biggie passed away. Passed away. He's like, where Brooklyn at? 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 We gonna do it like this. Every time you ready, check it. Where Brooklyn at? Right here. Right here, Biggs. I'm gonna carry on the legacy. I got you, Biggs. Back to Gargoyles.
Okay.
So they shake hands and go back to the castle. Everybody's shaking hands and celebrating the good days with them. And then all of a sudden, Xanathos starts to realize that he's watching. Why is he watching him? He's like, Goliath is going to be kind of hard to control, especially now that he got this cop friend that he wasn't planning for. And so all of a sudden, Xanathos calls him down for a meeting. And then all of a sudden, who come back? Now, Justin, think about it. As soon as you get a new girl, y'all going on dates, y'all start y'all relationship, y'all happy, y'all taking pictures, posting pictures on IG, saying couple goals, who show back up?
Your ex.
Your ex. But not, which ex, though? Not your regular
the
ex.
The love of your life. The one that got away.
Exactly. Also, the one that cussed your mama out, but you still love for some reason. That's the ex that showed up. And that's who shows up. So Guy's old angel of the night comes back through. And so she shows up. She's like, "Oh, I missed you, my love." Xanathos explains some stuff. Was like, "I saw an auction. I bought her. Blah blah. Brought her to the castle. She came back to life. Woohoo!" And then he's like, "But I need y'all help though. I need y'all to protect this castle. I got robbed the other night. Need y'all to find these discs." And then Demoto's like, "We must help him, my love. He did this and blah 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 for us." So that's when Goliath's like, "All right, we're gonna go on missions. All right, you three busters, y'all gonna go down to this factory or whatever. You two, Hudson and Bronx, y'all gonna go down to this underground factory. Me and my Angel of the Night, we taking the sky fortress." It was like, there's a sky fortress? And so they all would break off to go find these CDs that they need to get for our younger generation who's listening to this. CDs are like records, but smaller.
And
still, go ahead.
And there were also floppy disks.
This is true. Were they floppy disks?
Yeah, they got floppy disk, buddy.
We're not explaining what that is. You gotta look that up. I can't explain what that is.
No,
I'm
sure that thing was full of 1 meg.
Okay, so they go off for their missions.
Whole meg.
Not even a gig. 1 meg.
1 meg.
Okay, so when they go to the missions, what'd you think?
This was a fun sequence again. It's also because one of those things where it's like, it sets up the show as what it's going to be from this point on, right? They're not going to be fighting medieval warriors and swords, and well, not the whole time, but it does start. This is where the show turns from, okay, we're doing a medieval fantasy show to a flat-out comic book show, and this is where it feels like, it's like I was loving the designs of all the goons, all the henchmen, that's like Hydra shit. That's AIM shit. I loved it. I was like, the guys who designed these are Marvel. These are Marvel henchmen designs. These are Marvel goons, and I loved it. And that's kind of the fun thing about that is knowing it's the show. Gargoyles is Disney's attempt at doing a comic book show. But the thing I gotta give them credit for is that you did, but it's yours. Yeah. It's like your comic book show. It's not based off of another thing. It's not an adaptation. It's your thing. And the fact that it's your thing means you made up all the rules. And what's cool is you had a bunch of writers who knew the rules of other comic books that it didn't feel like you were kind of getting it. It's like, no. These people freaking knew comics. These people read Marvel. These people read DC. And they knew how to write that, but in the filter of its own concept.
But you know what kind of disappoints me, though? And we're going to talk about this later on when we talk about the legacy of the show, is that you're right. They did create this, but the only problem with it is, though, is that they don't use it today. They've gone out and bought other companies. Since Gargoyles has been on the air, they purchased Marvel and they bought Star Wars. Yeah, it's true. And what do they do with that? They make Star Wars movies, they make Marvel movies and television shows, and do all this great stuff. Even their existing properties, they brought back in some way. They brought back DuckTales, and you're going to bring back Tailspin and Rescue Rangers, and all this stuff we get ready to be built again. But it's like, bro, you're forgetting the main thing that you built that has such a passionate fan base that's ravenous for more content, and that's Gargoyles. Yeah. So honestly, I wish they would do more with this property that they have.
Oh yeah, no, and I bet you there's a part of me that feels like in due time, maybe within a year, I wouldn't be shocked if Gargoyles got some sort of announcement, because it is such a beloved property. Now we're at the point where it is on Disney+ streaming that we're watching it on. We have regular access. It's kind of like DuckTales is doing great, and people now are catching up on DuckTales. I almost feel like in due time, I wouldn't be surprised if the showrunners of the original Gargoyle show, whether it be Greg Weisman or the initial married couple, I forgot their name, who wrote the majority of the season 1 episode, the season 1 show, I wouldn't be surprised if they announced that, hey, we're going to do a new Gargoyles thing. You know, most of the actors are still around. You know, obviously Keith David, who plays Goliath, who is amazing in this show. You know, and Marina Sirtis, who plays, who of course was Donna Troy, another Star Trek cast member, who plays Demona, equally great. I'm sure they can get a lot of them back. You know, Ed Begley. No, Ed Begley. No. Ed Asner, still around to play Hudson if he so wishes. And so, like, I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if they were like, went, hey, let's do a cool Gargoyles reunion movie, animated movie. I bet you it's gonna happen sooner than later. You know, DuckTales has got to ride out the 90s nostalgia. Yeah. And then when everyone's like, yeah, DuckTales rules, and they're gonna start maybe going, hey, why don't we do more? Why don't we do more things? You know?
No, I agree with you. And I'm willing to bet money the thing that kicked it off is when this show came back to when he came back on Disney+, and they saw that it was trending on Twitter, and they were like, oh wait, this does have a fan base. Oh, yeah. Yo, we got to do something with this now. Okay, but let's get back to let's wrap this up. Okay, so they go on the missions, they do all this stuff and everything like that. And then they bring back the CDs and everything like that. We go to episode 5. In episode 5... Justin?
Gosh, something wrong here.
Justin, it's the guy with the... Justin, the guy with the... Justin, hi.
Gosh, something wrong here.
Look, sir, droids. How long have you had these droids? Let me see your identification. We don't need to see his identification. These aren't the droids we're looking for. Move along. Move along.
John. Yeah, okay, I see your hat. Get up. What the? How?
How do they know? How do they know?
What's messed up, dude? What's messed up is that they are haunting us at the same time. We're in 2 different locations. As far as I know, you're in a completely different time zone than me.
All right, Jessa, we got to wrap this up. I think they're tapping the stream. I think they're
ridiculous.
They're using it to look. These are find our location.
No, ridiculous. Producer Stacy worked her ass off to make sure she covered this up with the streams. That's ridiculous.
She said she encrypted the stream 3 times. I still don't know what that means, but she said she did it though. But I don't know.
Okay, why don't we go ahead? Okay, why don't we go ahead and say let's. I'm gonna grab my laptop and then I'm gonna go ahead and write if I think the my final thoughts, and then think if Gargoyles is woke or etc. Okay, you know what I mean? I'll be right back. Okay, just stand still. Sorry.
Okay, while Justin does that, I'll take to the last part. Okay, so after that, we go on to episode 5. We discover that Xanathos has actually betrayed the Gargoyles, and that he during that mission, we also discovered that Goliath's ex is also kind of a mean streak. There's only 2 occasions where she tries to kill the humans. Even if they get like the floppy disk, she sets the ship on fire, which means the Demonas become evil in a way. Later on, when they get back to the castle, Demona tries to tell Goliath, like, look, we can't be trusting the humans. They killed us. They did all these terrible things to us. And then Goliath's like, my love, like, what's happened to you? You're not the person that I knew. Your heart's become filled with anger and hatred. You become cold. You become unforgiving. And because of that, it's like, I don't know who you are anymore. I'm going to go see my friend now. Which is like, oh! He kicked X-Bay to the side to go visit New Bay. And so when he gets to Elisa's like, yo, dude, all those companies you guys just did, the people who robbed Xanathos, I did some research. I did my detective thing. And guess what? That was Xanathos. Xanathos planned this all from the start. He's like getting data and all this kind of stuff. Goliath goes back, leads to an epic battle between like Goliath and Xanathos, and these machines that look just like Goliath and everything like that. And then, go ahead. Sorry.
Do you think the other Gargoyles were offended that the robot Gargoyles all look like Goliath and none of them look like them?
I thought the same thing.
Do you think that Brooklyn looked at that and went,
for real, bro? For real?
Like, there's like 5 of us. Like, why didn't you freaking make any of those look like me or Lex? It's rude, but that's rude, but all right.
It's like, look, I get Lexington. Lexington is small. Like, no, I love you, homie. I love you. Like, I got love for you. But I mean, come on, I'm regular size. Like, why not me? Like,
I got a beak. A beak can be made of metal.
I can
be a
put a
sword.
laser in there, do all this kind of stuff.
It could be like a rocket launcher. Listen.
But anyway, so like they fight the robotic Goliaths who have like lasers and rocket packs, whatever, and the Gargoyles give them that work. Take out the whole team. We also find out that Goliath's ex-Bay has a name now. They call her Demona, which is also a very intimidating name in itself. And so after that, it leaves them. So they fend this off. They defeat Xanathos, and Xanathos is like, "What are you going to do? You're going to kill me?" Because like Goliath has him hanging off a cliff. He's like, then Alicia comes in like, "You don't need to. We got something new called jail." and so then Xanathos gets hauled off to jail. Demona disappears, and now the Gargoyles are living in modern day society, getting ready to like go out and explore and all these type of things. And that was the first 5 episodes of Gargoyles. So all in all, like Justin, going back watching, what'd you think?
Oh man, I was pleased to see how well this show held up, man. Like I was pleased. I think there are a couple things that obviously don't really age as well because it's like 20 some years later. I think the New York thugs that tried to threaten the yuppie couple, that's not good anymore. That's kind of a little stereotypical there. But the majority of the stuff that happens in this show, I am legit surprised how well it holds up for me. I am definitely was like, dang, Gargoyles. The Gargoyle still slaps, man. Like
it
Gargoyles,
does.
And much like Batman the Animated Series, I feel like those are two pinnacle shows for me in the 90s. Like I think both those shows were both like beautifully animated, but also like impeccably written with some amazing actors with amazing voice actors behind them and production value. And the fact that I can still look at an episode of Batman Animated Series to this day and go, man, this show still rules. And then I watch an episode of Gargoyles, like, man, this show still rules. And I can still feel that for both shows. I can't say that for a lot of shit I grew up with, and it's really cool.
No, I agree with you because as I was watching this, the one thing that was going through my mind was that how like there's a lot of times when people make films or movies. Films and movies are the same thing. I'm sorry, like movies or television shows, and they talk about how like when it's not received well by the audience and people are complaining about online, they talk about like, oh well, we didn't make it for you, we made it for kids. And I'm looking like, see, the problem is though that's not always a viable excuse because when you make something that's just good storytelling that stands the test of time, adults and kids will both like it. Kind of like DuckTales. DuckTales is made for kids, but it's also like made for those older fans, and it's really universally loved. I kind of feel now that like when people say that, it's an excuse for you not being creative enough and not being a good enough storyteller. You can't always go to the base like, oh, it's a kids movie. Like no, like there's a different levels. Like you can do a kids movie, but still entertain everyone at the same time.
Right.
Okay, so you ready to give it our rating?
Yeah.
Okay, I got to do mine. So just as you remember, everybody, for here we give our rating. So again, even if we love the property or we hated it, doesn't matter. We base this upon again how woke and inclusive we think this actually is, how diverse and inclusive actually is. So if it was on point and really inclusive, whatnot, we give it a woke. If it was like kind of getting there, do some cool things, we give it a waking. And if it's not doing a gosh damn thing and being problematic, we give it a sleeping shit. All right, I'm gonna write mine down really quickly, and then we'll show ours to the screen, and we can explain why.
All right. I couldn't find my paper, so I'm typing mine out.
All right. I got an envelope here in my BRB desk, so I can use that. Okay.
All right.
So.
All right.
Ready? So, yep. On 3. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, I say woke.
I said waking. Okay. All right.
It probably looks backwards for you guys, but now you get.
No, it looks fine. It looks fine. It's like, well, okay. So I want me to go first.
Yeah, go first. Yeah.
Okay. So here's the thing. Why did I give it waking? So the thing about it is that while it did kind of like have like those two colors of color of talking, it didn't really pass the wire test for me. Mm-hmm. 2, it also didn't really pass the Bechdel test either because there was no point where Lisa like talked to anybody who was like another gender of hers. Now I will admit though, going into the further seasons, it does pass the Bechdel test because they introduce more female characters. It does pass the wire test because it start introducing like more minority characters. It starts going across the world, introducing all this great mythos and whatnot. It even gets to the point where like no spoilers, but Gargoyles start talking to like other mythological creatures themselves. And so it does get to that point. But in these first 5 episodes though, it is waking for me. Like it's still establishing itself. But again, it could have been dope again because if you show like go to the past, you have all those like there was a lot of men character in the past, but there was only one princess. princess. There could have been like a woman in that castle, someone for her to talk to, or just like maybe a female gargoyle besides the Mona that we saw. There could have been a bunch of different things. In addition to this, our core team. Our core team, they have existed of a bunch of dude gargoyles. It's like we could have a female gargoyle here at the start as well, or maybe two of them, and so that way they kind of do their own thing. So that's part of the reason why I kind of feel that, like, again, it's dope, it's on point, but again, it's not hitting those notes that it could have hit. Having one female character there could have like done this whole thing, and could have helped us or like 1 to 2 female characters there could help us meet this whole thing, and also incorporate some more people of color. But again, though, later on it does these things, but for right now, I got to give it Waking. What'd you say, Justin?
That's a fair point, man. And I feel like I had Waking for a bit, and I decided I'll give it the extra inch to just barely cross the Waking line to go into woke. I should definitely say, when we do these like kind of categorizations, it's like I say woke, I go hardcore, like this is what it is, but then as I get my chance to explain, I want to go, well, woke, but like by this much. It's woke by this much compared to the Waking that's mostly here. And I think because of the fact the fact that Eliza is a mixed race character was such an important thing for me to have in this show. The fact that could have just been a Caucasian character. She could have just been a black character. She could have just been a Latina character. But the fact that they knew a mixed minority character is a realistic approach for someone in New York is a great call. The fact that Damona does have a lot of interesting layers to her as a character that's not, that's not just simply I am the villainess or etc. Her rationale, her motivations completely and utterly make sense. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I love the idea that there is an element of explaining of an element of that is kind of about racism in terms of the gargoyles, in terms of what you brought up with the African American community, and in terms of how that is even viewed. The fact that the show is willing to play with that as an allegory is also a really great thing. And yeah, no, there is a wide perspective of just kind of just sort of seeing that there, just basically the idea that like the show, even with the henchmen, they're willing to throw in mixed genders and race. Like there's even a couple of female henchmen. Like what show did that back in the 90s? Not a lot. Yeah, no, you're right. It doesn't really pass the Bechdel test. It doesn't really pass your Wire test in a lot of the other areas in the first 5 episodes. But even the simple fact is like, there is a mixed race and gender henchmen? Who did that? Who did that? No one did that. I can't think of another show in the 90s that literally did that. Like Ninja Turtles was all like robot ninjas. Putties were only, as far as I can tell, non-gender binary putties. There was no race in the putties. Like any other cartoon show in that time period that had henchmen, none of them even went so far, even as far as to give us a mixed gender and people of color as villains, and even in the henchman world. And it's weird to say, but the fact that they were like, why didn't we do that? Who does that? No one. It literally just gargoyles. And the fact that these are the steps they were doing in '94. It's
hard for me. That was a good point. Those are true.
Yeah. So yeah, but you're not wrong either. So I think.
And I totally agree with you, because again, those are all the reasons why I liked it. Like in those first episodes, they're doing that allegory and everything like that is totally amazing. Have that moment between like when Damona comes out, you find out like Damona's actually like a villainess in a way who they have to go against. That's dope to see. Like again, and I feel you. Like I totally agree with you. And I feel like for me, it was just that Bechdel test part of it, and also like again that my Wire test. Those are the two things. And honestly, I feel the series passes that later on though, because later on in the series they start to do this, especially when the seasons like 2 and 3 and whatnot. But it was just right now they're not quite there yet, but they'll get there though. And so that is a good thing. So again, like if you like.
Yeah.
How did you find me? How did you know I was here?
Johnny? Johnny?
I thought this was encrypted. Justin, I'm gonna give this Waking, but Justin, I gotta go.
Oh my god. Okay. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Thanks for watching the show.